minutes, even longer. And that's just not going to cut it. People are not going to watch that because it's not visually engaging. Now they may they may cut away and start to multitask while they listen to your audio, which, is not a total loss, but really keep in mind that that audience is looking for a visual experience. So, especially if you're doing a talking head video, think about how you can break that up by introducing some visual elements. Some possibilities are, number one, you can sub in images as you would maybe take a slide from a presentation that has to do with this content and sub that in while you continue with your spoken content with your voiceover. You can also use titles and subtitles. You may notice when I do my tips of the week, I usually create subtitles at the bottom with some key points to kind of give you some visual interest. Another possibility is to sub in some what news organizations call B-roll footage. So you may have seen a news story where they're interviewing the coach of a football team, and to break it up, they will sub in footage of the team practicing, for example. So this is just general footage just to give the viewers something to break up that plain old static talking head. So, for example, if you're sharing some insights that you gained from a conference that you recently attended, you might want to sub in some footage that you took from the conference floor or from one of the speakers, just to add that visual element. Another thing you might want to do, and be very careful with this because it's really easy to get goofy, but props. If you are the subject and you are talking into a webcam, you can use props to make your point. I, for example, have held up stick figure drawings and hand-drawn diagrams, just kind of goofy off-the-cuff stuff to illustrate points that I've made in some of my videos. So think about, as the person in front of the camera, what you can use or what you can access to make that experience more visual. And then finally, the fifth question you want to ask is, what is the call to action? Now, if you remember back in question number 2, we talked about what is the goal. When we talk about the goal, we're talking about the goal of the content itself. When we talk about the call to action, that means it has to do with giving your viewer a logical next step at the end of your main content. Think about it this way. This viewer has given you his or her attention for several minutes. Now, you don't want to waste it by just saying goodbye and signing off. You want to keep them engaged. They're interested in what you have to say. So you want to give them a logical next step. And before you plan out your video, you need to decide what that next step is going to be. Do you want them to download a resource? Do you want them to sign up for a webinar? Do you want them to watch another video? Do you want them to request a free consultation? Have in mind what that call to action is going to be, and that's going to help you kind of shape your video around that call to action when you think about your actual content. Okay, so those are the 5 basic questions to ask when you start the process of planning your video content. Is it an exhaustive list? No, but it's really going to get you on track. And when you do move into the next phase of planning, which is something I call storyboarding, which we'll cover next week, you will feel much more confident that you have done your homework, you've done your due diligence, and you're on your way to creating a video that is both engaging and effective. If you have questions about what we just talked about, or if you want to join the conversation, I would love to hear from you, and I will provide that info at the end of the podcast. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about the length of your video. Now, you may have heard, if you've done some research on video content, you may have heard the 90-second rule, that all videos need to be 90 seconds or less, or you will completely lose your audience and be a total failure. And whenever I hear that, it reminds me of a story that a friend once told me. When she was just starting off in her career, she was working on her resume, and she had the chance to work with a resume coach. And she asked him point blank, "How long should my resume be?" And he looked at her and said, "Well, that depends. How interesting are you? And I think we need to take that approach when we talk about the length of our videos. You absolutely can create videos longer than 90 seconds, but if you're going to do that, then two conditions need to be met. Number one, the content has to demand it. Okay, what we don't want to do is create a longer video for the sake of creating a longer video, or because, I can say from experience, because I was too lazy to edit it down. If the content demands a longer video, then by all means do it. And then the second consideration is that you need to keep that visual interest going. So if you are going to create that longer video, make sure, again, that it's not just a talking head for that 5 or 7 minutes or however long you want it to be. Make sure you keep that visual interest going. And yes, your videos still need to be tight. They still need to be as tight as possible, but don't let that hold you back from exploring more in-depth topics when you approach your video content. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. And again, I want to say thank you to all of you who have left us reviews already. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our website at resonancecontent.com, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. I also invite you to check out our monthly webinar series. It is on the fourth Wednesday of every month, and the next one, given that this is the month of video, it's going to be called Action, Boost Your Brand with Video Content.